There's something happening to you that nobody warned you about, and it's making you question everything. You wake up in the morning, and the first thought that crosses your mind isn't excitement about the day ahead. It's a quiet calculation of how much time you'll have to spend around other people before you can finally return to your own space. Your phone buzzes with invitations and your stomach tightens. Not because you don't care about these people, but because somewhere along the way, being around others started feeling like you're breathing underwater. You smile, you nod, you participate, but inside there's this voice getting louder every day saying, "Take me home, take me home, take me home." And you've started wondering if maybe something is broken inside you, if you're becoming one of those people who can't handle normal life anymore. But what if I told you that nothing is broken? What if this pull toward solitude isn't a problem to fix, but a door opening to something you've been searching for your entire life without knowing it? Let me take you back to a moment you might recognize. You're at a gathering, maybe a birthday party or a work event, or just hanging out with friends like you've done 100 times before. Everyone around you seems fine. They're laughing, talking over each other, moving from group to group with easy smiles. The music is loud, the room is packed, and you're standing there feeling like you're watching it all happen from behind glass. You can see it, you can hear it, but you can't connect to it anymore. It's not that anything bad is happening. Nobody is being mean to you. The problem is more subtle and more disturbing than that. The problem is that you can feel the emptiness underneath all the noise. You can sense that most of these conversations are just people throwing words at each other to avoid silence. You can tell that half the smiles in the room are masks covering exhaustion or sadness or confusion. And the worst part is that you're doing it too. You're playing the game, saying the right things, laughing at the right moments, but you've never felt more alone than when you're surrounded by people who can't see that you're disappearing right in front of them. This is the paradox that changes everything once you see it. The world tells you that connection happens out there, in the movement and the mixing, in the constant activity that proves you're alive and engaged. But your soul is discovering a different truth. Real connection, the kind that actually fills you up instead of draining you, requires something the world can't give you. It requires stillness. It requires you to stop performing and start feeling. It requires you to turn down the volume on everyone else's expectations so you can finally hear what your own heart has been trying to tell you. And the only place where this becomes possible is in the sanctuary of your own solitude, behind the closed door of your home where you can finally stop pretending and start being. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is something most people never figure out. What you're experiencing isn't antisocial behavior or depression or any of the labels that well-meaning people might try to put on you. What's happening is that your energetic frequency is changing. Think of it like this. Every human being operates at a certain vibrational level, and for most of your life, you were probably vibrating at a frequency that matched the collective. You could plug into group energy easily. You drew strength from being around others. Crowds energized you instead of exhausting you. But something shifted, maybe gradually or maybe all at once. Your frequency started rising. You began operating at a different level. And now, when you enter spaces where the collective energy is lower, denser, heavier, your system reacts like it's been hit with static electricity. You feel it in your body first. Your shoulders tense. Your breathing gets shallow. You develop a headache or sudden fatigue that makes no logical sense because you haven't done anything physically demanding. What's actually happening is that your energy field is trying to protect itself from frequencies that no longer match your own. You're not weak for feeling this. You're sensitive in a way that most people aren't. And that sensitivity is a gift even though, right now, it might feel like a curse. But sensitivity alone doesn't explain everything. There's a deeper layer here that connects to something Allan Kardec understood when he wrote about spiritual evolution and the soul's journey through multiple existences. According to spiritualist philosophy, we don't all enter this life at the same level of development. Some souls are young, experiencing Earth for the first or second or 10th time, and they need intense physical experiences to learn their lessons. They need drama and conflict and external stimulation because that's how they grow. But there are other souls, older ones, who have been through this cycle many times before, who have already learned the lessons that come from the external world. These ancient spirits incarnate with different needs. They're not here to collect experiences anymore. They're here to refine something internal, to work on subtle levels of consciousness that can only be accessed through quietness and introspection. If you feel this magnetic pull toward home, toward silence, toward being alone with your own thoughts, you might be one of these older souls. And if that's true, then everything that's been confusing you suddenly makes perfect sense. Your home isn't just shelter from the weather. For someone going through what you're going through, it becomes something sacred. It's the one place in the entire world where you don't have to translate yourself for anyone else's understanding. Out there, you're constantly adjusting. You're reading the room, moderating your words, dimming your light, or brightening it, depending on what the situation seems to require. You're managing other people's comfort levels, making sure you don't seem too intense or too distant, too serious, or too strange. It's exhausting in a way that has nothing to do with physical tiredness. It's soul exhaustion, the kind that comes from constantly being something other than what you are. But when you walk through your front door and close it behind you, all of that falls away. You can breathe at your natural rhythm. You can think your actual thoughts instead of the sanitized versions you share in public. You can feel your feelings without having to explain or justify them. And in that space of complete authenticity, something extraordinary becomes possible. You can finally meet yourself, the real you that exists underneath all the roles and performances, and you can begin the deep work that your soul came here to do. There's an experiment I want you to try, something that will show you exactly what I'm talking about. The next time you're out in the world, at work, or running errands, or wherever you go, I want you to pay attention to something specific. Notice how you feel in your body before you interact with anyone. Notice your energy level, your mood, the baseline state of your being. Then engage with people the way you normally would. Have conversations, answer questions, participate in whatever needs participating in. But here's the key part. Keep monitoring that internal state. Notice when it shifts. Notice which interactions leave you feeling lighter, and which ones make you feel like something invisible just reached inside your chest and squeezed. You'll start to see a pattern. Certain people, certain environments, certain types of conversations actually pull energy out of you. It's not your imagination. It's not you being difficult or overly sensitive. It's a real energetic exchange, and you're on the losing end of it. Now fast forward to when you get home. The moment you close that door, something changes. Even before you take off your shoes or put down your bag, you can feel your nervous system starting to downshift. The tension you didn't even know you were holding begins to release. Your breathing deepens. The tightness in your chest loosens. This is your energy field recognizing that it's safe now, that it doesn't have to maintain those protective barriers anymore, that it can finally relax and begin the process of restoring what was depleted. This is why so many people have this instinct to shower immediately when they come home. Why changing clothes feels so necessary even when they haven't gotten physically dirty. You're washing off more than just the dust of the day. You're cleansing yourself of all the energetic residue you picked up from other people's stress, fear, anger, sadness. Your home becomes the place where you can return to neutral, where you can remember who you are when you're not absorbing everyone else's emotional weather. But most people stop there. They use their home as a recovery station, a place to rest between battles, and then they go back out and repeat the cycle. What they don't realize is that home can be so much more than that. When you bring spiritual awareness to your living space, when you intentionally create an environment that supports your highest self, your home transforms into something almost magical. It becomes a frequency generator, a place that doesn't just restore your energy but actually raises it. And this is where Allan Kardec's teachings about the interconnection between the physical and spiritual worlds become crucial. According to spiritualist understanding, every thought carries a vibration. Every emotion creates a ripple in the unseen dimensions that surround us. When you fill your home with prayer, with meditation, with peaceful silence and genuine gratitude, you're literally changing the energetic signature of that space. You're making it into a beacon that attracts higher spiritual influences and repels lower ones. You're creating a zone where your spirit guides can communicate with you more easily, where inspiration can flow, where healing happens naturally. Think about the difference between a house that's just occupied and a home that's been consecrated. In the first one, people eat and sleep and watch television and argue and worry and carry on with life unconsciously. The walls absorb all of that chaotic energy. The space becomes neutral at best, toxic at worst. But in the second type of home, there's intention. Maybe there's a corner set aside for quiet reflection, just a small table with a candle and something meaningful to you. Maybe there's a practice of consciously releasing the day's stress before entering, leaving it outside like you'd leave muddy shoes on the porch. Maybe there's music that lifts your spirit instead of draining it, words spoken with awareness instead of unconsciously, moments of genuine presence instead of constant distraction. These small acts accumulate. They layer upon each other like deposits in a spiritual savings account. Over time, your home becomes charged with a frequency that you can actually feel when you walk in. It holds you differently. It speaks to your soul in a language that has nothing to do with words. And here's something that will probably surprise you. When you create this kind of sacred space, when your home becomes a genuine sanctuary of peace and high vibration, you're not just helping yourself. You're doing something profoundly important for everyone around you, even the people who never set foot inside your door. The spiritual dimension operates according to laws that physical science is only beginning to understand. Energy doesn't stay contained in neat little boxes. It radiates. It spreads. It influences everything within its range. A single home filled with genuine peace and spiritual light affects the entire neighborhood in ways that can't be measured but can definitely be felt. People walking past your house might experience a momentary lift in mood without knowing why. Troubled spirits wandering in confusion might be drawn to that light and find comfort there. Your own spiritual development, happening quietly in your living room, sends ripples through the collective consciousness that help others wake up to their own potential. You could literally be doing more good for the world sitting in meditation on your couch than someone running around to charity events and social gatherings. Not because action isn't valuable, but because true service begins with vibration, and you can't give what you don't have. Before we go any further, I need to stop and acknowledge something important. If you're still here, if you've read this far, and these words are resonating with something deep inside you, that's not an accident. You were meant to find this message at exactly this moment in your journey. And I want you to know that you're not alone in what you're experiencing. There are countless others going through this same shift, feeling this same pull toward solitude and silence, wondering if they're the only ones who've changed. We're building something here that's bigger than just information sharing. We're creating a space where souls who are waking up can recognize each other, where people who felt isolated can realize they're part of a global family that understands. If this speaks to you, if you want to stay connected to this community and hear more about these spiritual truths that nobody else is talking about, I invite you to join us. Not because we need numbers, but because you need a place where you're understood, and we need your light adding to ours. Now, I want to address something that might be weighing on your mind, especially if other people in your life have been giving you grief about your changing habits. There's this assumption in our culture that productivity equals worth, that being busy means being important, that a full calendar is the sign of a successful life. By that measure, someone who chooses to stay home, who turns down invitations, who guards their solitude fiercely, looks like they're failing somehow. They look lazy or antisocial, or like they're wasting their potential. But this is such a profound misunderstanding of how spiritual growth actually works that it's almost painful to watch. The truth that mystics and spiritual teachers have known for thousands of years is exactly the opposite of what mainstream culture tells us. Real transformation, the kind that actually changes who you are at the core level, doesn't happen in noise and activity. It happens in stillness. It happens when you stop running and finally turn inward to face everything you've been avoiding. There's a reason why every major spiritual tradition includes periods of retreat, silence, and solitude. Jesus went into the desert for 40 days. Buddha sat under a tree until he reached enlightenment. Muhammad retreated to a cave. These weren't vacations. They weren't escapes from responsibility. They were necessary conditions for spiritual breakthrough. Something happens when you remove all external stimulation and sit with yourself in complete honesty. All the voices you've internalized, all the conditioning you've absorbed, all the false selves you've constructed to navigate the world, they start to dissolve. And what remains, what emerges from underneath all those layers, is your essential nature, the you that existed before the world told you who to be, the consciousness that will continue after this body is gone. The eternal spark of divine awareness that incarnated into this particular life to learn specific lessons and fulfill a unique purpose. You can't meet that essential self at a party. You can't discover it in the middle of busy work and social obligations. You can only find it in the quiet sanctuary of your own sacred solitude. Allan Kardec wrote extensively about the process of spiritual evolution and the importance of self-examination in that process. In the Spirit's book, he presents teachings from advanced spiritual entities who emphasize that the whole purpose of incarnation is refinement of the soul. We come into physical existence not to accumulate wealth or status or experiences, but to develop virtues like patience, compassion, humility, and wisdom. And these virtues don't develop automatically. They require conscious work. They require you to observe your own thoughts and motivations with brutal honesty. They require you to identify the patterns that keep you stuck in lower vibrations and then deliberately choose different responses. This kind of deep internal work is impossible when you're constantly distracted by external demands. It requires protected time, protected space, and a commitment to going inward even when it's uncomfortable. Your home provides exactly that. And when you use it for this purpose, when you transform your solitude into a spiritual practice, instead of just a retreat from exhaustion, you're doing the most important work a human being can do. But let's be practical for a moment, because spiritual truth has to be livable or it's just pretty philosophy. How do you actually do this? How do you transform your home from just a place you live into a genuine spiritual sanctuary? It starts with attention. Start noticing how different areas of your home feel. Are there rooms that feel heavy or stagnant? Are there spaces where you naturally feel more peaceful? Energy accumulates based on what happens in a space, so a room where you've had arguments will carry that frequency. A corner where you've prayed or meditated will hold that vibration. You can shift this consciously. Open windows and let fresh air move through, carrying out old energy. Use sound, whether it's music that lifts your spirit, or even just clapping in corners to break up stagnant patterns. Bring in living things, plants that purify air both physically and energetically. Most importantly, let go of objects that tie you to past versions of yourself. That box of mementos from a relationship that ended badly. Those clothes you keep thinking you'll fit into again someday. The gifts from people who aren't in your life anymore. Everything holds memory. And if your space is cluttered with the past, there's no room for the new to enter. Create at least one area that's dedicated to your spiritual practice. It doesn't have to be elaborate. A single shelf can become an altar. A comfortable chair by a window can become your meditation spot. What matters isn't the size or expense, but the intention you bring to it. When you have a designated space for connecting with the divine, Your consciousness starts to shift automatically when you enter that space. Your body learns that this is where you go to be still, to listen, to open yourself to guidance from higher realms. Over time, that space becomes charged with the accumulated energy of all your practices, and it becomes easier and easier to drop into deep states of connection there. This is part of why spiritual traditions create temples and churches, not because God only exists in special buildings, but because consistent practice in a dedicated space creates an energetic momentum that supports the work. And please hear this, because it's crucial. Choosing to honor your need for solitude doesn't mean you're abandoning the world or shirking your responsibilities to others. It means you're finally understanding that you can't give from an empty vessel. Every person who's ever done genuine good in the world, who's served others with authentic compassion and effectiveness, has been someone who knew how to return to their own center and refill. You're not being selfish by protecting your energy. You're being wise. You're recognizing that your peace of mind, your spiritual clarity, your energetic fullness, these aren't luxuries. They're the foundation for everything else. When you go out into the world depleted and scattered, you might go through the motions of helping, but you're not bringing your best self to the situation. When you go out from a place of centeredness and genuine inner peace, everything changes. Your presence alone becomes healing. The words you speak carry more weight. The actions you take have more impact. You become a force for good, not because you're doing more, but because you're being more fully yourself. The spiritual realm doesn't measure contribution the way humans do. We count actions, events, measurable outcomes, but the divine measures vibration, intention, consciousness. A single moment of genuine prayer from someone who's done the inner work to clear their channel carries more spiritual power than 1,000 hours of busy activity from someone who's operating on autopilot. When you stay home and do the quiet work of raising your own frequency, of healing your own wounds, of connecting with your essential nature, you're literally changing the world. You're adding light to the collective field. You're making it easier for others to awaken because you're demonstrating that there's another way to live. Never let anyone convince you that this path of conscious solitude is less valuable than the path of constant external engagement. They're measuring worth with the wrong instruments. So here's what I want you to understand as we close this message. The pull you feel toward home, toward silence, toward protecting your energy and choosing solitude over superficial socializing, this isn't a phase you need to outgrow. It's not a problem requiring fixing. It's your soul's wisdom guiding you toward exactly what you need for your evolution. Trust it. Honor it. Stop apologizing for it. You're being called to something that most people won't understand because they haven't reached this stage of their own journey yet. That's not their fault, and it's not your responsibility to make them understand. Your responsibility is to listen to your own inner guidance and follow it with courage, even when the world calls you strange for doing so. I want to thank you so deeply for being here, for staying with these words all the way through, for being someone who's willing to question the mainstream narrative and look for deeper truth. You're exactly the kind of person this community was created for, and I truly hope you'll stay connected with us. Not just as a passive observer, but as an active participant in this growing family of awakening souls. Share your own story in the comments. Tell us what this journey has been like for you. What struggles are you facing? What breakthroughs have you experienced? What questions are you sitting with? Your voice matters here. Your experience matters here. Someone reading your words might see themselves reflected and realize they're not alone. And that single moment of recognition could change everything for them. And if there are topics you'd like us to explore, spiritual questions you're wrestling with, share those too. This isn't my space, it's our space. A sanctuary for seekers who are ready for truth, even when it's uncomfortable. May you find peace in your solitude. May your home become the temple it's meant to be. May you trust the wisdom of your own soul's journey. Until we meet here again, dear friend, walk gently with yourself and know that you're loved beyond measure by forces you can't always see, but that are always present.